Welcome to the CrossCounsel podcast. We believe negative emotions shouldn't run your life. We invite you to take a deep dive into this challenging transformational journey that goes far beyond this podcast. Join Executive Director and expert facilitator Steve Freitag and me, John Crevillian, as we discuss how to deeply experience the love and truth of Jesus.
So today we have on the podcast with us a very good friend of mine and ours, really, Terry Harris, who I've known since before I was part of CrossCounsel. I became part of CrossCounsel in 2010. So I think Terry and I were friends and were doing ministry even before then. So it's great to finally have her here on the podcast so she can give us some perspective about her journey and talk to us about her new book. So do you want to talk to us about that, Terry, and how that all came about?
Well, sure. It is a novel that, so it's a work of fiction that highlights CrossCounsel. So that kind of throws people sometimes when, I'm telling them about real life ministries that are in it, but it is a work of fiction. So I do have a publishing company that's Harris House Publishing. We publish, Christian teachings. And then I have a Torch Runner imprint that is a hybrid platform that's like where we help authors publish their book and then they handle it themselves. And so this book is actually published through Torch Runner's imprint. And that Harris House Publishing and Torch Runners has been my main focus over the last, since 2010. And, but I've always wanted to be a writer. So, since I was a little girl, I had wanted to be a writer. That's what I went to college for. And, but that's also where I learned the publishing process and all that. But various reasons, you guys know the issues that come up. I never was able to get a book published just because actually I never got a book fully written. And even just the process of sitting down to write was just really difficult for me, even though I loved it. And it is a gifting that I have, but I was just having blocks basically. And the first session that I had, the first TPM, now the melt process session that I had was around what fears were paralyzing me, keeping me from writing. And it was actually my first introduction to this process. I was in a Starbucks with our mutual friend, Karen Sebastian Worth, and she was asking me about, she's my mentor. And so she was asking me about how I was doing with my writing and what was holding me back. And I was telling her, that I don't know, I just feel so paralyzed whenever we do have the time to finally sit down and start something. And so she said, well, do you want to take a look at that? And see, what all that might be about. Are you willing to hear what Jesus has to say? And I was just totally like a casual conversation, and I was like, yeah. and so there we were sipping our lattes, and I went to this memory of when I was a 12-year-old girl, and what came out of that was that I felt I was afraid of disappointing my dad or being a bad reflection on my dad. And I'll never forget, my core thing was I felt like I was a disappointment. That was the lie I was believing. And the truth that I got from that was Jesus telling me, you can't be a disappointment to me, because disappointment means letting somebody down, and you're never holding me up.
I love that truth.
I never would have thought of, and I'm on my own. And I thought, wow, it really was freeing that, yeah, of course,
Mhm.
I'm not the one holding Jesus up.
Mhm.
So,
I love that.
you know, so that was definitely freeing for me. And I was so excited about this process of ministry that I was just telling everybody, you've got to do this. This is the most amazing thing. And I
Mhm.
actually wrote a scene in the book where Elle, the main character, basically does the same thing. She has a similar experience where she hears from the Lord in her session. And then she's just wanting to tell everybody about it and
Mhm.
how
Mhm.
transformative it is. Um,
Right.
but anyway, I realized later that it's not a one and done deal, and it's not a we are all like layers of an onion. I've heard both Mary and Steve say that many times, that it's a continual process of getting healing, and when you get
Mhm.
one issue healed, then you'll find another underneath
Right.
somewhere else. And so,
Even if you're at
um,
Starbucks,
I'm
even
sorry.
even if you're at Starbucks, it's not one and done.
Right.
Okay, all right. I just want to clarify for our listeners and viewers that even at Starbucks, you have to keep going. All right, good.
Well, we finished that session with that amazing bit of truth. It literally was only like 15 minutes,
Isn't that crazy?
and
Mhm.
I got to
Golly.
some truth, and yeah, it was really transformative for me. And
So
so
can we just, not to interrupt there, but to
no, go ahead.
interrupt, hey, just to back up, because I think in the early days of when you first started getting ministry, before I even met Steve, I think that Steve, didn't we invite you to come down and you did some ministry and some coaching with some people that were wanting to do ministry at Terry's house, right? I mean, it's been over 10 years, I think. So I'm trying to remember how all that came about. So
Actually, I
how
think
did you meet Terry?
I think if my memory serves, and good luck with that, I actually think it was at Karen's house. I think it was down in the basement. I remember, like, I can even position myself in this chair, and then you're to my right, and I think we did some ministry together. That might have been the first time that I remember meeting you. I could be wrong, but that's where I
Mm,
go, because
mhm.
I think and maybe, I don't know if you were a part of the group where I came down and we were at uh,
At
Shady
the
Lawn.
church,
Yeah,
hmm
Shady Grove.
Shady Grove. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Were you in that group, Terry?
I was, so that's where I first met
Yeah,
Mary,
yeah.
taking classes from her at
hmm
Shady Grove. Because Karen, I was so excited about this process that Karen was like, you can come learn how to do it. And so
Yes.
she invited me to a class that Mary was teaching there. And
hmm
yes, I think I did meet you not too far after that, Steve. Well, actually, I can't remember what year that would have been,
hmm
but I did go, um, actually to more than one, several when you were down
Mm.
in Texas doing
hmm
coaching that, you actually, I've always volunteer. Oh, I want to be the one in the seat, just so that, I can get more ministry.
Hmm.
And so
Yeah.
you had actually facilitated for me at someone's house over in Fort Worth. That was
hmm
probably one of the first times.
Yeah,
Right.
and I think you were working with teenagers. That was part of
Yes,
the thing, right? Yeah,
right.
hmm
I
Yeah.
remember
hmm
a few things.
Yeah.
We recently sat down with a group of people who are fairly new to CrossCounsel. There was a common theme. While they found some results with traditional approaches, when they fully engaged in the melt process, there was simply no comparison. What God did in their hearts through the ministry of CrossCounsel is some of the most profound healing they've ever experienced. Help us share this healing with others. Become a monthly donor. We want to reach as many people with this message of hope as we possibly can. When you support CrossCounsel, you not only share the load of the ministry costs and the sessions, but you also help us provide content and that message of hope through the various platforms. We're so grateful to be doing this with you. Thanks for listening.
So we've known Terry for a long time. And, she's been through all of our training and has had multiple ministry sessions. She's in our coaching groups where we coach people who are facilitating with other people. So she's been very involved. And I was just really excited when I heard about her. I mean, I knew she was writing, but I guess I didn't realize that CrossCounsel was going to be in the book, as well as Mercy House and some other ministries that we've been involved with. So that was really cool, Terry, to find out that you're actually taking your personal experience, and you're not in the book, but just the things that about the ministry and how freeing it is that you could share that through the characters in the book. I just think that's amazing because people can see how it comes about in a real life situation, with people just living their life and when they would need to get some freedom, and what things prevent them from getting freedom, and all the things that the main character has as, part of her journey. So that was just super cool.
Yeah, I think that story is often a great form of delivering truth to people. Well, Jesus did it through the parables.
Right.
That, they might not receive or understand otherwise. They can really get a taste of something through story, whereas they might be closed off to if you just come along and tell them about this process. But so I wanted to introduce my character getting to the point of just feeling like she was all out of options. She was desperate to try something, even though it was out of her comfort zone, because she wanted freedom and healing.
And before we go too far, I just want to give a plug for the book. This is the book, the first of many that Terry has written. And this one's called Love Remains, a Mercy House novel. So can you just talk about what that's about, Terry?
Yes. So it's the main character is Elle, and she's a young woman running from grief. She, in an effort to reconnect with her faith and stabilize what is basically her crumbling emotions and mental health state. She moves across country to volunteer in a maternity home. And this is set at a place called Mercy House, which is actually a real place. The Mercy House ministry is a real place for young women, single pregnant women who are in a crisis situation. And so the fictionalized Mercy House, Elle goes to that to be the client care coordinator. And she realizes that she can't outrun her pain. And so she has to face it. And so, it's just following her on that journey to healing.
I remember that you and I did some joint ministry at Mercy House here in Texas together. We did some ministry. You were doing the Moms in Prayer. Moms, how do you pronounce, what is that? Go ahead and tell me.
It's Moms in Prayer. It's a group of moms. It's an international organization, and they're groups of moms who join together every week to pray for their children and schools. And so, yes, I started one at Mercy House to pray for these babies while they're still in the womb. And so these women can learn how to pray for their children. And we pray scripturally, pray scripture over the children. And it's just a really sweet time. So
I remember sitting in on some of those. And so I would minister to the girls at Mercy House. It's been several years because I lived closer. I lived where I could drive there. Now it's about an hour and a half, I think, for me, but where I could drive in and minister to the girls there. And did you sit in on some of those sessions? I'm trying to remember.
Yes. Actually, Mary, that's how I got connected with Mercy House, was through you. Of course, Susan was in the same class. Susan, the founder of Mercy House, was in the same class that I was when I first went to one of your trainings.
Okay.
But then you started serving there at Mercy House and invited me to come and do that with you. So I got to minister to some of the girls there as well. And then afterwards is when I started the Moms in Prayer group there.
Okay. So that was just so fun because, young women that are in a crisis situation like that, they got in that situation for a reason. And most of the time that reason is they've had a really tough life and they have a lot of lie-based thinking, that's kinds of things that we deal with at CrossCounsel. And they have low self-esteem. They have beliefs about themselves being worthless and no good and those kinds of things, which really lends itself to what we do at CrossCounsel. So it was just so great to see them face those lies they believed and get free of those things, to set them on the right path. They're having a child, not always for the first time. Some of them had already had either abortions or adopted out children before they came to Mercy House and decided, I want to keep this baby. So just to see those people get free there was just really amazing, to know that now they have a better chance at actually being strong and solid and just a stronger Christian, to be able to be a good mother, to be able to provide for their kids. And being there with you, that was really special. So it's just, it's awesome to me that the book highlights those kinds of things, because there are millions of women who are in that kind of situation, who know all those feelings you talk about in the book, and the struggle and the thoughts they have. And just to listen and read in the book about how they are walking through that, from a real life, story perspective. It's very compelling, I thought.
Thank you.
This has been the CrossCounsel Podcast. Please remember to subscribe, rate, share with your friends, and look for us on social media. The world will become a much better place, and Jesus will be seen in a much better light the more we are transformed by His truth and love. We'll see you next time, everybody.